The Roman Empire was once a symbol of absolute power in the ancient world. For more than 1,000 years, Rome dominated nearly all of Europe, North Africa, and a large part of the Middle East. At its height, this empire controlled nearly 1/4 of the global population, possessed the most powerful army of the ancient era, and developed systems of law, roads, and architecture, whose influence is still clearly visible in Western society today, especially in the United States. Yet what has puzzled historians for centuries is this question: how could such a mighty empire collapse? Was Rome defeated by barbarian enemies from outside, or did it rot from within? Or was there some hidden force that quietly manipulated the entire process of decline? At first glance, Rome seemed like an unbreakable machine. The Roman army was tightly organized, enforced with iron discipline, and achieved constant victories on many fronts. The stone roads they built connected an entire continent, allowing armies to move at speeds never seen before in the ancient world. Roman law laid the foundation for modern legal systems, while their model of governance directly inspired later republics. With such strength, no one believed that Rome could collapse overnight, and in reality, Rome did not fall in a single day. It declined slowly over many generations, through a process that was both mysterious and terrifying. One of the earliest and most dangerous causes was the collapse of the economy. To maintain a massive army and the luxurious lifestyle of the elite, the Roman government repeatedly debased its coinage, reducing the amount of silver and gold in each coin. This led to severe inflation. People lost trust in money, prices soared, and trade stagnated. Taxes became increasingly heavy on the working population, while the wealthy found ways to avoid taxes or withdrew entirely from the system. When the economy no longer served the majority of the people, loyalty to the empire gradually disappeared. Rome began to destroy itself from within, quietly but irreversibly. I will share with you one story so you can clearly feel the luxurious lifestyle of the elite. The story goes like this. On one evening in the city of Rome, while most people were struggling to find bread for the next day inside a marble villa of the nobility, torches burned brightly like daylight. Inside, a lavish banquet was taking place. Long tables were covered with wild game meat, rare fish from the Mediterranean, and wine aged for many years, continuously poured into golden cups. The host of the banquet was a Roman senator. He wore a purple robe, a color reserved only for the ruling class, and reclined on a dining couch, while slaves knelt beside him to wipe his hands, pour wine, and serve every bite of food. Laughter echoed, blending with music and performances by dancers, poets, and gladiators hired specifically for the evening. When they were full, the guests did not stand up to leave. Instead, they drank a substance that induced vomiting so they could continue eating more dishes. To them, wastefulness was not a sin but a symbol of power. At the same time, outside the city gates, common people stood in long lines waiting for emergency food distribution, fearing that tomorrow there might be nothing left to eat. That night, the city of Rome was divided into two completely different worlds. One side was filled with light, wine, and laughter of the elite. The other was darkness, hunger, and despair of the people, and it was this very gap that silently hollowed out the foundation of the Roman Empire. While the economy was already trembling, an invisible enemy even more dangerous appeared: disease. Major epidemics such as the Antonine Plague and the Cyprian Plague swept across the entire empire, killing millions of people. Cities became deserted, villages were abandoned, and farmlands were left without anyone to cultivate them. The Roman army, which depended on an abundant supply of manpower, now fell into a severe shortage of soldiers. Disease did not only take human lives, it also destroyed the spirit of Roman society. Faith in the future collapsed, panic spread, and many people began to believe that the gods had turned their backs on the empire. Many historians believe that, in essence, Rome had already decayed from within, before external enemies had the chance to deliver a decisive blow. At the same time, the leadership class of Rome fell into an unprecedented period of decay. Emperors rose to the throne and were assassinated at a dizzying pace. Power became a commodity bought and sold with money and conspiracy. While the people were starving and desperate, the ruling elite sank into luxury, feasting, and internal power struggles. Real power no longer rested on the throne, but in the hands of interest groups and manipulators operating in the shadows. This led many to believe that Rome was no longer governed by legitimate leaders, but by invisible forces behind the scenes, pushing the empire further and further away from its people. I will tell you the story of Emperor Pertinax, a man who ruled for only 87 days before being killed by his own bodyguards. In the year 193 AD, the Roman Empire descended into chaos after Emperor Commodus was assassinated. In the midst of this crisis, Pertinax, a man of humble origin known for his integrity and discipline, was placed on the throne. Many believed he was the last chance to save Rome from moral decay. As soon as he became emperor, Pertinax began to do what previous emperors had not dared to do. He restored discipline. He cut back the lavish spending of the court, cracked down on corruption, and demanded that the army, including the Praetorian Guard, obey strict discipline. For the elite and soldiers accustomed to excess, this was nothing less than a declaration of war. In particular, the Praetorian Guard, who had long been bribed with money and privileges, were enraged when Pertinax did not pay the full bonuses they expected after placing him on the throne. After only a few weeks, their loyalty quickly turned into hatred. In their eyes, the new emperor was no longer a leader, but an obstacle. On a morning in March of the year 193, about 300 Praetorian Guard soldiers stormed into the palace. Pertinax did not flee. He stepped forward to face them, attempting to persuade them that discipline and order were the only way to save Rome. But words could not defeat greed. One soldier rushed forward and struck him down inside the palace. Pertinax died after 87 days of rule. Immediately afterward, the Praetorian Guard did something unprecedented in history. They put the Roman throne up for auction to the highest bidder. That was the moment when the entire empire exposed its corruption down to the very bone. The story of Pertinax reveals a cold truth. In the late Roman period, becoming emperor was no longer a position of power, but a death sentence. And sometimes, the ones who killed the empire were not enemies from outside, but those paid to protect it. When Rome had already weakened from within, external threats began to pour in. The Germans, Visigoths, and Vandals are often labeled by history as barbarians. But the reality is far more complex. Many of them had once served in the Roman army and had been hired by Rome itself to guard its borders. Rome was not only fighting its enemies, it was also relying on those very enemies to survive. When the system of control collapsed and loyalty faded, the forces that once defended the empire turned against it. In the year 476 AD, the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire was deposed. By that time, however, the empire was already little more than an empty shell. However, to say that Rome completely disappeared would not be accurate. The Western Roman Empire fell, but the legacy of Rome continued to live on. Roman law became the foundation of Western legal systems. Its architecture, political thinking, and republican model deeply influenced Europe and later the United States. It can be said that Rome did not die. It merely changed its form and continued to exist in another way. The fall of the Roman Empire did not come from a single cause. It was the result of economic decline, devastating plagues, moral decay, power conspiracies, and pressure from outside forces. Rome was not defeated in one decisive battle, but dismantled piece by piece over many generations.